Good morning. I am Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you, spend some time with you, talking to you about you and your business. I got a lot to cover on today's program. What else is new? Loved spending the time with you, Dill. And as always, we got a diversity of topics. That's always a lot of fun, and looking forward to spending time with you. I've had this lady on before, Laura Rose, and she's a coach, a professional coach, works with a lot of CEOs out there, and she responded to a HARO request as a news service that reporters have that I had regarding the issue of poor communication. And it's a huge problem out there, and it's getting to me to become more and more pervasive. And we got a lot of responses to it, and I found hers more interesting than most of those and more enlightening. The reality is that a lot of the rudeness that may actually be perceived in business is maybe a frustration on the part of individuals because they are getting bombarded for so many communications, is what she pointed out, which I thought was perceptive. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kevin.
Glad to have you on. So talk a little bit first about your firm, and let's go ahead and get into the topic some more.
Okay, well, I am a business and efficiency coach. I primarily focus on time management and project management for career development and business success. So that's just a little bit about me. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to my website at www.lauraleerose.com.
All right, lauraleerose.com. So tell us a little bit. There's a problem out there in the area of communication. Talk a little bit about that. I thought you did a very perceptive job of kind of raising some awareness on that.
Well, we have, like you had mentioned in your query, we have a lot of different tools out there, and it's not one tool fits all occasions. And I'd really like to express that the tool is only as good as its user. So we've got to get back into the mindset of I'm not just sending out information. The goal for communication is sending out my message and validating that it's been received, understood, and accepted. I think most of us forget about those other parts of it. They just send it out there.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So more than being a lack of integrity on the part of individuals, they are just really overextended in terms of their personal bandwidth. Yes,
and that comes into time management and prioritizing. There are different levels of ways to communicate. You can start with, the post or bulk mail or newsletters for things that you don't expect any response on. You can do individual emails when it's a little bit more urgent, but when you do expect a response, you want to go into a more personal, face-to-face, either phone call or face-to-face chat to get that immediate conversation going.
Okay. And, but what's interesting, one of the complaints I hear often is that you've got this period of going back and forth where there's a lot of exchange going on, back and forth, say particularly between a seller and a buyer. All of a sudden there's a cutoff in communication when they're at the decision-making point. So they're no longer dancing. The seller's asking for a commitment. That is when they fall off the radar screen entirely, which makes me doubt the idea that they're merely overwhelmed or distracted. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yes. In the business, specifically in the business buyer and seller domain, it kind of falls into that supply and demand. Today, the buyer has an overabundance of sellers out there, including the Internet. You've got online e-commerce, you've got Amazon, you've got Craigslist. So they don't feel the pressure to purchase from this particular buyer any longer. They can negotiate. If they feel like negotiating, they negotiate. But they can say, well, let me see if I can find a better deal on the Internet. And they're not locally constrained anymore. They go globally. And so now the businessmen have to adapt to how the consumer is currently buying. So there are also apps out there that compare prices and features automatically for you.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. To me, then you're beginning to look at an integrity problem. If you're engaged with a seller's engaged with a buyer, And they've got, the sellers expended a certain amount of energy into the whole process, and now the buyer, now you're at a point where you're looking for the buyer on the side of milk cartons because of the lack of communication. To me, it becomes kind of an integrity problem. Why doesn't the buyer simply say, hey, I'm not interested in buying it this time?
I think it's the buyers trying to get as much information as they can and then get that information and look for it. Okay, this is exactly what I want. Let me see if I can get it at a lower price on the Internet. So the seller has done their due diligence to give all the information, all the model number, all the features, all the bells and whistles. The buyer takes that information, so let me see if I can find a better deal with all this stuff.
Yeah, okay, but again, we're talking about sellers that disappear for, oh my God, indefinitely. They never get back. Is there not some kind of, I don't know, good form at least, where they would communicate back to the seller?
Now, do you feel there's a responsibility on the seller to come back and say, hey, it's been about 2 weeks since we talked, what is your decision? And then ask exactly for what you want. Should I need you to say, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm no longer interested, so that I can release you from this contract?
Yeah, or even this conversation about a contract.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So your thoughts about that? You think a hard deadline is appropriate with
I believe whenever we have any type of interactions, put a deadline on it. If I don't hear from you by such and such, this is what I'm assuming. You can say, I'm assuming that we're going forward and I will do this, or I'm assuming we're not going forward. Please let me know by such and such a date.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Again, spending some time. We've had Laura on before. She's done a great job before. Laura Lee Rose. By the way, you can learn more about her at Laura Lee Rose. That's Laura LeeRose.com. And you work with companies of various sizes, true?
Yes. And both individual and in groups.
What is a large company for you? What's the range, I guess, of sizes company?
Well, the largest company I've worked with is about 50 people.
Okay, so you really have a sweet spot for small businesses. Yes. Got it. Well, thanks for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want to remind the listener, best content here, it shows up over there at usdailyreview.com, and you're listening to The Price of Business.